Hello, everyone, and welcome into the What Comes First podcast. I'm your host, Keith Canter, and I'm really excited today because today's going to be a special day. I don't think it's going to take long for you to figure out why. Our guests today are Hampton, Dortch, and my son, Harrison Canter. So that's what really makes it special. And your first question might be, why is your son on your podcast? And to answer that question, I really wanted today to talk about the benefits of mentorship. And I know mentorship can come in all different shapes and sizes, but since last August, Hampton and Harrison have entered in what would be like more of a traditional style mentorship program. With Hampton, a more you're not that old, but older mentor with a little more experience and a little more seasoning, to Harry being the mentee and being the less experienced or the one needing to learn things. So just a quick introduction. Hampton is an account executive at WildSpark, a company that is consistently bringing out materials and leadership development to help your company grow, build culture, and just improve in company engagement. Hampton is married to his beautiful wife, Erica, and some relatively recent news, he's about to be a first-time dad. So congratulations, Hampton.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about it. And if I have a child, we know it's a girl, but if she turns out with half the character that Harry has, I think
Yeah.
we'll be in good hands.
Yeah. Well, our that's nice of you to say. And our other guest is Harrison Canter, also known as Harry Canter. Harry is a rising junior at the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, majoring in finance. And I'm proud to say he's doing many things right as a college student. So welcome in, guys.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought we'd kick off first, Hampton, and go back to last August. I called you on the phone. I kind of rolled out this idea to you about mentorship and would you be willing to kind of engage as a mentor to Harrison? And basically, I said, hey, would you mentor my kid? And we had a little bit of questions, but take us back to that call and the time we hung up and kind of how you went through the process of deciding that you would do it and why you wanted to do it.
First off, it was very flattering that you'd reach out and call me. And I think I have to rewind maybe a little bit further than August when I met Keith a long time ago. A long time ago, a couple of years ago, I was at WildSpark. I'm still here and I'm in sales and we do leadership development. And, from looking at Keith for 5 seconds on LinkedIn and on FCM's website, I'm like, this looks like the kind of guy that wants to develop his people. So I'm going to do everything I can to get in touch with him. So I sent him a letter, I sent him a box, and he gave me some time. We got to know each other a little bit. WildSpark, hey, maybe one day, FCM, if you're listening to this, maybe you'll get to experience WildSpark. But I know you all have some great things in place when it comes to leadership development. And so from there, we kept in touch a little bit. But for those of you that may or may not be connected to me on LinkedIn, I do post a good bit. And some people may like that, some people might not. But I think Keith kept seeing me there, which maybe kept me top of mind. And so for one, that was really affirming to me that you reached out, because I realized that while we hadn't been, messaging each other every day, I guess you saw my name. So I definitely want to be mindful of what I'm putting out there. But it was cool to see that I guess had been having some impact or made some sort of impression from afar that way. And so when you asked me to do this with Harry, I mean, I was flattered, but I also would say the number one qualifier for me to say yes to something like this is the child or son or student to want it. If Harry was the prodigal son who was like, I don't want to meet with this guy, then I don't know how well this whole thing would go. But I think it's a testament to the way that you've raised him and you have obviously been a mentor, and he learns a ton from you. I can't tell you how many times we're on the phone and Harry's like, well, my father said this, Keith said this. And so I think that knowing that this was something that Harry wanted made it even more attractive to me. And then also it just around that time, one thing I've noticed is being in the leadership development space, I'm constantly selling this idea to other executives of, hey, the most important thing you can do is develop your people, which Keith, I know that you're doing that. But so often they come to me and say, hey, my managers that are in their upper 20s, 30 years old, they've gotten promoted, and they got promoted because they were the best loan officer, or they were the best in sales, or they've been with us for a while, but now they don't necessarily know how to lead. And I think that's because nobody really thinks about leadership until they get that title. And then at that point, it's kind of too late. So I thought, what if you start thinking about leadership before? And the best way to do that is to lead yourself. And the best time to start is as early as possible. And for Harry's case, he was a freshman in college. And when I was a freshman in college, I was playing a lot more video games than he was and studying a lot less. And so the idea that I could have an opportunity to just meet with someone who was hungry really fired me up. And I only want to hang out more with Harry. So
Yeah.
it's been awesome so far.
Well, Hampton, as I was writing down a few things, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but the word that kept coming to my mind is discipleship. And we can talk about that a little later. But, I know that Harrison has benefited greatly from your discipleship over the past year. And it's had a tremendous impact on his life. But I'll let him tell that. But before we get to that, Harrison, before Hampton, you had an engagement with a coach, and more of a traditional style. It wasn't really a mentorship. It was more of a paid coach, where the coach was to meet with you, and you did goal setting and all that stuff. And I'll let you talk more about it. But what's the difference in working with the coach that we had employed for your benefit, as opposed to working more in this mentorship space with Hampton? What has been the differences, good and bad?
So first off, with the coach, I think that he knew a lot more about the psychological side of things when it comes to just the human brain in general. And so he came to a lot of, anytime I ever had a problem, or anytime I've ever, just talked to him in general, he always brought up, well, this is this side of the brain, and it does this, and it functions this way. And that's why people are the way they are. And I think that the mentorship is a lot more personable. I think that I could come to Hampton with any problem in my life, whether it be personable, it could be academics, it could be anything. And I think that this mentorship compared to the coach is more of a friendship, rather than just me sitting down with the coach for an hour and him saying, okay, well, today we're going to work on this. And the reason we're going to work on this is because you suck at this. And the reason you're bad at this is because of something psychologically that you have to improve on. Now, I will say that the coach is still a great idea for sure. I think everyone should have a coach. I think everyone should have a mentor. But I believe that the way I've benefited with Hampton differently than the coach is I feel like I can talk to Hampton a lot more about anything when it comes to just day-to-day business. Me and Hampton text daily most of the time during the week. And with the coach, I felt like I was bugging him, or, I felt like I couldn't come to him about my girlfriend or any kind of personal relationship. I think the coach was more, he worked on, whether it was public speaking, or whether it was, I'm introverted pretty much. So how do we work on, you being in public situations or anything? And I think Hampton has a lot more built me up in relationships, or, Christ, or, working hard, leading yourself. So I think that they're both good options. I just think that the mentorship is way more personable than what a coach would be like.
Yeah, thanks for that, Harrison. So Hampton, as Harrison was describing that, number one, do you see the relationship the same way? And then, but I guess I felt like there might have been a little warning there, because you get too friendly, you don't accomplish growth, right? So where's that balance between being a good friend in a mentorship, but also the accountability and the things that really drive us forward and improve us?
I think that's a good question to ask. One thing that I've experienced with mentors I've had in my life is they just listen to me because they care. And I think this comes from more of a coaching model. I know there's some overlap between both of these, but so often I hear this advice of ask and listen, don't tell and sell. And I think early on in my life, it's someone shares what's going on in their life. And that's part of my personality. For those of you that are familiar with Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius, I'm a galvanizer. And so I want to tell and sell. I want to be like, oh, you've got this going on. You can do this and you can this and this. But if someone comes up with the idea on their own, they're going to take a lot more ownership of it. And that's what I've experienced with Harry. It's been relatively easy just because of so much of our relationship is me just asking questions and him coming to these conclusions on his own of decisions he needs to make, whether it's continuing to work for the Crimson Tide football team or focus more on finding internships. Or what internship to find in the summer, or where to get plugged in, or how to spend his time, or what habits to build. And so much of it has just been me asking questions. And I think sometimes those questions need to be challenging. Like we were on the phone yesterday and it's about to be summer. And one thing I wanted to make sure to ask is, what are you really excited about this summer? What do you think you're going to crush, whether it's your internship or, goals that you have in the gym? And then where are some, where might you have blind spots? Where do you need to be aware of going into this summer so that you don't look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done that? And so even just asking those challenging questions, I think has been helpful for us.
Yeah. So Hampton, you haven't had any formal mentorship training or have you, I guess I would ask, do you have any certifications or any formal training around mentorship, or are you just kind of learning from others that have mentored to you and you just want to pass that on through discipleship?
It's funny you ask, because when Keith and I talked back August, I remember sitting in the chair I'm in right now, kind of saying, well, I think that we could do this thing and this little program. And I like to measure life through body, being, balance, and business and this and that. And he was like, hey, oh, that's great. But I just want you to be there for him and listen to him and ask hard questions and care about him. And I know that for anyone that does have the certifications, that is, a therapist or a coach or knows everything about psychology, I know that can only help someone. But in my experience, the people that have really poured into me, they just seek to know me. I listened to a podcast the other day. I think his name was Adam Young. I'll have to check back, but I know he's a counselor, and he was talking about like neuroscience tells us how helpful and healing and powerful it is for us to be able to tell our stories. And as people, as a mentor or as a friend or as a family member, if you can just learn to be an attuned listener to someone, how powerful and how healing, or that can be incredibly healing and powerful for them. And so as I look at my life, the people that have poured into me the most, so often I'm just talking and they're asking questions. And I think that's what me and Harry's relationship looks like. I really want to know him. And the goal is for me not to be this expert that gives him the keys to life, but it's more of just saying, hey, I care about you and I want to listen. And so much of that is he's kind of finding it on his own. But I mean, maybe I will get some sort of certifications or something someday. Don't have any of that right now, though.
Yeah. I think the point of my question, and you answered it wonderfully, is certainly if you have coaching certifications or clinical certifications, those are wildly important. And I mean, I have a coach, and as Harrison said, he said everybody should have a coach. And I just think that, with coaching and mentorship, counseling, there are fine lines, and you need to know your role, right? Like, so we need to be careful not to counsel someone clinically if we don't have the designations that we need to do to counsel someone on real important life matters, especially when you're talking about anxiety or depression or clinical things, right? But at the same time, coaching and mentorship can really be closely aligned, and they're very similar. But I think the thing that has really struck me about the relationship that you two have described, just even on this podcast, but I've gotten to witness it, is there's friendship with accountability. And a lot of times a coach, it's not really his or her place to be your friend. It's his or her place to help you achieve specific goals. Whereas this is more of a ongoing relationship that can kind of morph into many different things. You guys see it differently? Harrison, what do you think about that?
I think that when I experienced my coach when I was a freshman in college, I always think of relationships as two-way streets. And I think that the only effort you're going to get out of it, or the only results you're ever going to get out of anything, is that if both of you put in the effort. And I think with the coach compared to the mentorship I've had, that with the coach, if I had an emergency or if I had any sort of, big deal I had to, get an answer to or anything, I couldn't just come to him directly as I would with Hampton. I think that when you say that it's more of the coach's, it's like it's the coach's job to get you to succeed. And I think with a mentor, it's the mentor's job to see you grow and to see you prosper. And while me being a mentee to Hampton, I love when we get on the phone and we could honestly just talk about anything and it makes my day better. I think when I met with the coach more, it was, we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z and why this is logically this. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that a mentorship compared to a coach, it's more fulfilling to me. But I think it's different for everyone as well. I think that if you're in, like with Carisha, with the coach you have, I think that it's perfect for you because you have to make these big ordeal decisions. But when you're not on the job, who do you have to talk to just about your wife or about your kids or et cetera? So that's what I think the difference really big for me is. Yeah,
it was well said, Harrison. Hampton, what are some basic qualities that you think, somebody's out there, they're listening to this and saying, okay, maybe I need to think about mentoring someone. What do you think of some of the qualities that are important? And if you don't possess those, then maybe being a mentor wouldn't be right.
Yeah, well, I would say you mentioned discipleship earlier. The whole model is that, you are meant to be mentored, meant to be discipled, and then also pour out as well. I think no matter how old you are, if we are to think that we have ever arrived or that we have all the knowledge or that there's nothing to learn, then I might have a date with yourself and say, is that really the case? So one, I think someone that is being mentored by someone else, that's going to be huge. And then also, I keep saying this, but it's just been on my mind a lot recently. You need to be much more willing to listen than talk. This mentorship is not about you. It is about the other person. And I just think that, you're not here to rescue or save anyone. But I think finding someone like Harrison that is really driven, that occasionally just wants to talk to someone, that's kind of the key. Finding the person that wants it, because you don't want to kind of like force somebody into something. But again, having the humility to be mentored by someone, and then also humility on the other end to not feel like you have to say all of these magical things, really just being able to listen.
Right. And you said it's really about the other person, but yet something tells me you've received some benefit too. So speak on those benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what do we see when people find wild success in life, when they make all the money, when they maybe they sell their business. I was talking to someone the other day who was like, yeah, I was thinking about selling my business for however many $1 million. And then my mentor said, hey, there's nothing wrong with doing this, but you know that if you sell this, then you lose your vessel for mentorship, for discipleship. And so I think that there's lots of people that do all the things, they make all the money and have all the success, but then what do they want to do? They want to give back. It's the Stanford professor or the Harvard professor that they go back to the classroom. They've made all the money. They don't need to teach, but we have this innate desire to help other people and to pour out to them. As a Christian, I think that comes from God, and ultimately the desire is to really make his name known. Not everyone agrees with that, and that's okay. But I think every human, no matter who you are, deep down in you somewhere, has the desire to have an impact on people. Everyone talks about, I just want to have an impact. And so absolutely, it's been a huge honor just to see Harry walk through some challenges, whether it's been deciding where he wants to spend his time or going through some health stuff here and there or trying to find an internship. It's been super fulfilling and rewarding just to see him continue to grow.
Yeah. Harrison, how have you guys don't live in the same city. You're in Tuscaloosa. Hampton is in Birmingham. So it's close, but it's still over an hour away. How have you guys managed logistically? What technology have you used? How has it come easy, or is it a struggle sometimes not being in the same city?
Oh, it's been super, super easy, especially with technology nowadays.
Don't say Snapchat, by the way, because I don't have Snapchat.
No, we don't do Snapchat. Everything from Zoom to just getting on the phone with each other. We've met up one time and worked out. Had a good day there in Birmingham. It was awesome. Got some good barbecue as well. But if there's a will, there's a way to have a mentor. If Hampton lived in California or New York, I would still be getting the same sort of results that we've been getting from this mentorship. I think that it's been fulfilling whether I've seen his face over the phone or whether we're just texting during the day. So I think those were the main ways we've been communicating.
So you would clearly ascribe to the fact that don't let distance keep you from entering into a relationship with someone else in this way.
Yeah, yes, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of cool to see the different mediums that are used, right? And that, I think sometimes social media and our technology gets a bad rap, but it can be used to do some incredibly good things. And, this is one of us where it brings us closer together. And just doing this podcast, we're all kind of here in the 100%. Same virtual room and having a great conversation that I hope benefits those that are listening, that might inspire someone to replicate in some form or fashion what's taking place today. Harrison, I'll ask you the same question. Is there anything else that you haven't shared that has been benefit to you? If you got a story, I'd love to hear, specifically something that Hampton walked with you through and maybe guided you and was just a friend through the situation.
I would say, first off, the number one thing that I've sort of had with the mentorship is dependability. Is that he's my go-to guy. He's my rock when it comes to certain things. And when you have a mentor, and I'll just give an example, I got sick with some thyroid issues. Probably, I don't know. Was that Hampton? When was that? Was that the first of the school year?
It was. Yeah. No, it was right after Labor Day. I remember as a dad.
Okay.
I'm like,
yeah. So, yeah, and I was sort of cooped up in my bed for, I don't know, a month, and I was getting blood tests back and forth, and we didn't know what was going on. And, that's a scary time for anybody. And when you have somebody there that you can talk to, that especially with kids my age, I talk to my family, my parents, obviously, but to have an extra person talk to you is always awesome. And I think that just me getting on the phone with Hampton and Hampton asking me questions about, oh, well, how are you feeling today? Or anything of that sort always helps out. I think just having anybody to talk to in general at any point in time always makes a situation better. I think that at any point in time when you're going through turmoil, trials, anything, if you have somebody that you depend upon and you just speak freely, because I know that I can tell Hampton anything, that it benefits, especially when your discipleship or your mentorship or anyone, when they hold you accountable, they're going to tell you the truth regardless, which is always great with a mentor. I think that anytime I ask Hampton a question, I know he's going to give his genuine answer. He's going to tell me the truth, whether or not it's, like yesterday on the phone, he was like, I know this may tick off somebody that's in college, but the real truth is getting up at 11 o'clock in the morning and sleeping in all day and doing this, etc., whatever. He's going to tell me the truth. And so anytime that you're going through these struggles, having that mentorship is always going to help you benefit from it, I think.
Yeah. So Hampton, you are aware that Harrison got sick and you were there to help him through that process. And now that on the other side of this, he's healthy again, doing well. How does that make you feel knowing you walked through that with him and you are a benefit?
Very fulfilling. I think that, the best friends, and I know, I mean, me and Harry are definitely friends as well, but I would say that that's part of real authentic relationships. You walk with people through the good stuff and the bad stuff. And one thing, this is a little bit off subject, but I feel compelled to share. I think that I heard once, I think it was my pastor that said, it takes a really good friend to walk through hard things with other people, or a mentor, like to stick around. And Harry had such a good attitude in the midst of that. And so it made it like a lot easier to be there and be available and everything for you. But the best friends are the kinds of people that celebrate, like genuinely celebrate when you get the job, when you get a promotion, when something great happens. And so I know in this context, we're in different seasons of life. This might be a little friendship thing on the side. You may have peers around you that your friend gets promoted and you wanted the job too. What does it look like to actually genuinely celebrate them, even though that might mean that they got something that you wanted? And I think for Harry, when he goes off to New York one day and is working at Wall Street, and I'm asking him to come visit his house, I'm gonna celebrate him, because now, not that this isn't about me, but if I got to play a small role in him doing big things one day, I would be grateful for that. But yes, it's very rewarding to see you go through hardship and be out on the other side, for sure.
Yeah, and Hampton, I think a lot of us, especially myself, I'm obviously older than both of you. Um, we look for these things, these intangibles in life, right? Like they were talking about, discipleship, deep relationships, fulfillment, um, serving one another. I'm talking about some deep stuff, right? And what did it cost for you to do this? Like it didn't cost any money, right? It cost time, certainly, which is a resource. But talk about that, because we're all like, it seems like we're all striving for that, and we're trying to buy this and buy that, and we're trying to buy these things, but it really doesn't come at a price. It comes as an investment of really time.
My favorite quote right now, or one, I don't want to say that. One of my favorite ones, I hear this at church a lot, is the price of community is the sacrifice of commitment. Meaning, we all want deep, authentic relationships. We all want community with other people, but the cost of that is commitment. And so when you're tired, when you're busy, when you have other stuff to do, when you don't want to talk to anybody, yeah, I know. It's kind of like choose your hard. It's for those of us that want to be mentored, or want to mentor someone, or want to have deep community with other people. You got to choose your hard. It might be hard to do this while I'm really, really busy, but it's also really hard to be lonely. And I'm going to choose the community if it's that important to me. And so with Harry, it's like, I have a lot going on. I have a busy job, other friends, stuff with my church. I'm married, have a kid on the way. But I want this relationship with Harrison, and I don't want it to be a waste of time. And a waste of time would be being 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But really being committed to it is where you actually see the impact. And that's one thing I try to stand by as one thing I've noticed about myself. I think my and Harry's generation is starting to get criticized for this. It used to be, yes, I will be there on Friday night. I will see you at 6:00. And now it's, oh, I'll kind of see what's going on, this, that, or the other. I think our generation, because of FOMO and social media, we're always seeing what's my best option, and what does it look like to actually commit to someone and say, I'll be there no matter what. And I'm trying to do that with Harry. And I think that's really what you need to do if you want to have like those deep relationships, for somebody to know that you're going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Do you guys think, either one of you can answer this, is there a certain age that you need to be, or what do you think the best age generation is? Like any age? What age do you think would be best for a mentorship?
I guess I'll go ahead. I don't think there's a specific age, because obviously, like, I've learned a lot from you, Dad, of course. I've learned a lot from Ryan, my brother-in-law. I've learned a lot from whether it was a football coach or a school teacher or even a professor. So I wouldn't say necessarily there is an age, but however, with me and Hampton graduated, I don't know how many years, 3-4 years ago. And so he has a good idea of how social media is in my day and age, how college has transformed from the 60s to the 2000s. He knows what college is like. So
I
think
wasn't in college in the 60s, by the way, Harry. If that was if that was a shot at me.
No, it wasn't a shot. It wasn't a shot.
Okay.
It wasn't a shot. But so I think that if a mentor has been through some of the things, because everyone's experienced different things. Like Keith, you've experienced different things than Hampton has. I would say Hampton's experienced more things generally like mine. So if you have a like-minded mentor, I would say that is a good thing. But at the same time, I don't think age is necessarily a requirement.
Yeah. Hampton?
So I totally agree. I would say the person that's had the most impact on Harry's life, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, has to be you, Keith. I said this earlier, but so often he says, well, my dad said this. Well, Keith said this. I learned this from him. Oh yeah, he had me do a book report on that when I was younger. And so we didn't all have a great father, and I know that this can be a hard subject for those of us that didn't. But for those of us that did, or for those of us that are parents, what an opportunity to invest early on, because as your brain is developing, that's going to be the most impactful years. And then all I'm doing right now is making sure that all the stuff that's in his head that he learned in school from you in the church you had him going to is shifting down to his heart. And I know that because that's my story. It's like I had two parents, and I know, again, we didn't all have this, but I had two parents that really loved me and like taught me all that they could. They weren't perfect, but they were amazing. And right when I was about Harry's age, that's where you start asking the question, do I just believe this stuff because this is where I grew up, or do I actually believe this? And fortunately enough, I was able to see a lot of that knowledge from my head move down into action as it went to my heart. And so I think that the coolest part is it's never too early to have a mentor and someone pouring into you. Ideally, you have that from an early age. And then as you're growing up, I heard a pastor say, like, parents, it's not the youth group's job to raise and disciple your kids, it's yours. And then you can use other elements of the community to help with that. My CEO holds back every one of his kids. I told him it was for sports, but he says, no, it's an extra year of discipleship with them. And so I think, Keith, just to affirm you, how often you come up in our conversations is unbelievable. So amazing job there. And then now I'm just helping Harry. I'm making sure that he's just not giving me all the right answers. And I know that because I knew all the right answers when I was his age, and he does too. And I'm here to say, hey, I know you know the right thing to say, but do you believe that, and are you going to do it? And so I think that's been cool. And then to speak what you said, Harry, I'm 5-6 years older. So it's to the point where I'm old enough to maybe for you to look up to me a little bit, but not too old to where you're like, who's this old guy? I feel like I'm kind of relevant enough. So I like the age gap there too.
Yeah, I think I don't think there's really an age. Obviously, the approach might be different from someone in middle school than someone that's 30 years old, for sure, when you do one of these mentorship relationships. But I think it's important that you maybe keep the gap a little closer because you're really kind of trying to reach back to the person you were 5 years ago, and you've learned and you've grown, and you can reach back and help that person that might be 5 or so years behind you and help them grow. So, as we start to close this up, hopefully we've sparked some interest in those that might be out there that are thinking about maybe being a mentee. Maybe they're going to go out and ask someone hey, would you mind mentoring me? That's perfectly acceptable. And I think, like you mentioned, Hampton, if you were to go out and say, hey, would you mentor me? And this is where I need help, and this is where I need accountability, and would you be willing to do that? I think people would be flattered. So don't think, for those that are listening, that if you go do that, you're going to be a burden on someone. Most people that you would want to be mentored by would look at it as a flattered and honored to do it. And then there might be those that are saying, hey, I know this person that I could really benefit. I'm thinking about maybe reaching out to them. How would you guys just kind of summarize the best way to get started, and maybe just walk us through just real quickly kind of how it morphed into what you have today? Because what you have today is pretty special.
Yes. So I think me and Hampton first met over the phone, right? And we sort of, he just told me, he said, spill everything. And I think that's the perfect way to go. Is it's just, when you think of, again, like, it's a mentorship, but at the same time, it's just like talking to one of your friends. So anything that your friend knows, the mentor should know. They honestly should know more. So we started off and we got on a phone call and we just chit chatted it up. And then I think after 2 weeks, we just got another appointment. And the first thing we started on was goals, and just the basic level of, well, Harrison, what are your long-term goals? What do you want to see yourself in 3 years? And how are we going to get there? And that's really just how we started. And then everything sort of blossomed from there. Hampton, whatever you want to add on to that.
Yeah, well, I'll never forget you. You said you came to Birmingham once. You've actually come twice. We split a massive pizza, I think, over that first conversation.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember that. Yeah.
And so yeah, hey, having a meal together, if you can, that always wins. But Keith, to even some of your question of, if you're listening to this and you're wondering, I really want to be mentored by someone, I think I haven't had the experience necessarily of asking someone like, hey, can I mentor you? I mean, in college, there was a few guys that I led, like in a Bible study. So I take that back. I have. But I would say when you're asking someone for their time, often it's because you want to learn something from them. They're a little bit ahead of you in life. Maybe at that point, based on at least what they do, their time might be very valuable, maybe more valuable than yours. And so you never want to waste anybody's time. I think that coming prepared with questions, not having expectations of like meeting every week, but just asking somebody to meet like one time and say, hey, I have these questions for you. I want to talk to you about this. I'd say my wife at one point in our life was meeting with an individual, and this person came and she asked her to meet, and then she just sat there and was like waiting for Erica to start talking. And it was, hey, I think what she was feeling is, I'm not here to be a motivational speaker. Like, I'm just here to hear about your life. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer. And so just knowing what is it that you, being able to clearly define, I see this in you and I want to learn this from you. And I have these questions, and can I meet with you once? And if this is life-giving to you, then maybe we can continue. I think that would be maybe the best approach.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, this has been incredible. I took down a ton of notes. The overwhelming theme that we can't forget about in this social media, digital driven age is relationships matter. And we've talked about how we can use the tools to help communicate, but we have to show up. That's kind of what you were talking about there, Hampton, with the person your wife was mentoring. Is you got to show up. You got to be ready to give on both sides, and you got to be prepared. And when that happens, we can see the magic of relationships and how they build and how they grow. And from, I think overall, Hampton, you are really talking about and describing is being a great listener, being a friend, just being someone that's dependable. And then on the flip side from Harrison is showing up with the vulnerability and the willingness to share and to trust as the relation. Obviously, you can't just trust right out of the gate, but as the relationship develops, you can take more and more steps to trust. And then all of a sudden it kind of morphs into this, beautiful relationship where both parties are benefiting. The mentee is gaining knowledge and gaining wisdom and is growing, and the mentor is receiving fulfillment and all the things that come through what a discipleship looks like. So, man, this has been really fun. It's really been cool to kind of be involved. But as you guys know, I don't like metal much, right? Like I don't get involved in this. I just leave it alone. And it's really cool to see how this is developed.
I will say the other day, I meant to send Keith a text because I hadn't texted him in a while. And I said, Harry's really crushing it with his internship applications. And I accidentally sent it to Harry. And then my follow-up, I promise you, I don't text your dad like every time you talk. It was a bad look. I thought I almost got in trouble there for a second.
Yeah.
It was funny. It was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you guys, I think a lot of people that listen to this will be hopefully envious, and it will motivate them to want to replicate this out in some way, either mentor or mentee. And that was the goal of the show today. So, I mean, I love you guys both, and I appreciate you guys. And thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having us
so much, Keith.